you need a tribe. You need your people. I had this amazing family, and I had this amazing tribe of service members, wounded, I don't like saying wounded warriors, I like recalibrated carnivores or re-engineered experts. I had the support system immediately. It was impossible for me to fail. I felt ashamed of myself if I didn't try my best.
Aaron, it's great to see you, man. Thanks for joining me on the podcast today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm fascinated with your story because you and I both served in the military. You ended up having, if I understand correctly, IED exploded, and that's how you lost your vision. Is that correct?
Absolutely correct. Yeah, I was an EOD tech, so I was on the job, and this was Afghanistan, 2011. So
okay.
it was a roadside IED, same thing we were working on, the entire time. Just one of those vegetable jugs with a pressure plate IED, very homemade, very simple. And I had it all taken apart, but I was collecting evidence, and there was a secondary device not far from the first. And unfortunately, I discovered that by stepping on it.
Oh man! So you stepped on this. Was it the same type of IED that the first one was? Or was it a little bit different setup for the second one?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't get to investigate that one.
And clearly, yeah.
What we suspect is yes, it was just completely barren dirt all around, and somehow I got a chunk of wood stuck in my hand. So we're guessing that was from the plywood or the pressure plate, and it was literally, of the hundreds of IEDs we were finding out there, I'd only ever done maybe a handful that were not exactly the same. They were just littered all over the place, and they were exactly the same.
Oh my goodness! So you lost your sight. What other injuries did you sustain in that explosion?
Well, the blast. This is the strangest thing. Okay, so the things the insurgents were doing, they didn't really understand the components, the science behind it. They think it's just kind of magic, and what they didn't understand was how we were detecting them with these magic wand metal detectors. But they figured out that we were finding the IEDs with because of the batteries. So these 9-volt batteries.
Right.
So what they would do, because there's no other metal except just the thin, like the lamp cord wire, the connecting it all. So what they would do is they would kind of they run the battery out around like a mud wall, or just off to the, just set it off a little bit. And I don't know how they did this, but I stepped on the pressure plate and I did not get touched, virtually unscathed from the neck down. The blast hit me right in the head. And I'm guessing that's because somebody had not, instead of offsetting the battery, or maybe they offset the battery, but they also offset the pressure plate and didn't put it on top of the charge. So it must have been just off to the side, and the hard pack earth just kind of channeled it, and the blast hit me from the side. And what happened was it kind of crushed my face a little bit. It took both of my eyes, gone, and it blew up my eardrums, but I still had some, just hearing. I still had my hearing at the time. And it cracked my skull, so I was actually leaking spinal fluid right out my nose. So they medevaced me back to Kandahar. Within 48 hours, I was at Walter Reed, and I got some pretty good TBI. I was knocked silly, but I was actually conscious up until the point they got me on the medevac chopper.
Whoa, really?
and but I was a little loopy. Like I spent 24 hours in Landstuhl in Germany, and as they're about to wheel me out, they wanted to keep me under supervision for about 24 hours because of the pressure in my brain, the swelling. They didn't want me to do that
Okay.
transatlantic flight. So
Got it.
when they were packing me up and ready, to wheel me out onto the flight to send me to Walter Reed, the nurse said, "Hey, would you like to meet Tom Cruise?" And I was like, what? I must be. What's going
You're
on
like,
here?
what is going
And
on? Right.
are you messing with me or something? And it was like, no, no, no. I guess he was. It was like Mission Impossible 14 or something, and
Okay.
he was visiting the troops. He was doing some kind of the presser in Germany,
Right.
and he came by to say thanks for the. So it wheels me out, and right on the tarmac, I'm shaking hands with Tom Cruise. And I'm like, this is so surreal.
Oh my goodness. You probably like are thinking, am I in a dream or is this, the injury speaking right here? I can't even imagine what that would be like. That was within the first 24 hours of the incident?
That was, yeah.
Whoa. That is what. So you were awake. You were completely conscious, it sounds like then.
I was kind of in and out, and of course, everything had gone black. So
Right.
I'm kind of trying to piece together what's going on. Of course, I had TBI. I was fairly concussed,
Mm-hmm.
and it was kind of a whirlwind of doctors and nurses and bandages and Kandahar and airplanes to Germany
Mm-hmm.
and more hospital, and then to Walter Reed, and even there it was a whirlwind. And Walter Reed is in Bethesda. It's right on the Beltway, and there were just people coming and going, orderlies, nurses, doctors, and they wanted to keep an eye on me because of the swelling and the cracks in my skull. So there was a 24-hour watch just in there, a presence around the clock. And this is one of the strangest things too, is that uh, when you lose a sense, your brain kind of goes into this emergency mode. Like, I lost my sight suddenly, so it started
Mm-hmm.
hallucinating. I started hallucinating visions, like it was throwing up
Seeing things.
random images onto this blank, screen, trying to figure out, and it was some weird stuff. But then there'd be somebody talking, and I'm like, oh, there really is somebody in the room because they're keeping an eye on me. But all that being said, though, with everything going on, I didn't really have time for it to really sink in
Mm.
until, I don't know. Dude, I went through a few surgeries. I had some burns, cuts. I was pulling gravel out of my gums, and uh, they tried to repair one of my eyes because one was completely gone. The other one had like a gash across it from a piece of frag, but they thought they could save it. But
Okay.
but the came out of that. The doctor flashed his little pen light into my eye, and he said, "Do you see anything?" No, nothing.
Mm. Yeah.
That was it. That was when it really sank in. This is for real. This is
Yeah.
for keeps. And I'm going to be
What
blind for the rest of my life.
Yeah, what were those early days like? I mean, what was your mental state? I mean, obviously, a little loopy, I'm sure. You had the surgery, so I'm sure you're passing in and out of consciousness. But what do you remember about how you felt about yourself? Did you feel sorry for yourself? Were you worried about your guys? Like what was your mental state in those moments?
Well, you were in the military, and you know how we put up those protective walls.
Mhm.
We'd act tough, right? And this is most guys. We're builders, we're protectors. were the tough ones. And, I was putting on a strong front for everybody and probably mostly for me. But yeah, I was angry. I was depressed. I felt like a failure. I was angry at everybody. The president, the military. The rules of engagement changing every 10 minutes, and of course the enemy. But mostly, I was angry at myself for failing. I was an EOD tech, the military's bomb squad. This was our job. I did this over and over and over again. It was the same thing, and I was good. And they got me with this sort of rudimentary, low-tech, silly piece of junk. The stuff you can get, you can build out of your kitchen pantry, and that's what they got me. But you got to go. I guess you got to go through the. You got to feel the emotions. You got to go through those phases of grief and all of that. And I circled back to a couple of things that I really had on my, working in my favor. And one was an incredible family. My family's been through trauma, been tragedy before. My kid brother, 6 years younger than me, he was in a debilitating roadside construction accident.
Wow.
And it forever changed. And my mom, was right by his side for months as he was in a coma and had to, go through all of his rehabilitation. And then, man, when she came in to the hospital for the first time, she came in with this, of course, the bright voice of, my mom. Hey, honey. And all I could think of was, I'm so sorry I did this to your other son. And besides the family, I mean, of course, my sister, also the middle child, became a pediatric ICU nurse. So she came in like nurse in charge of the whole ward, translating jargon and telling the doctors and the other nurses who actually worked there, you will be doing this. You will be. I want to see these tests, and I want to see it. And it's like,
this was at Walter Reed, or
yes.
or after the fact. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
And and she's like, I got you, bud. I got you, big brother. I'm like, easy, but it was awesome. It was great. Just having that kind of support. As it sank in, and I was, and I knew I was feeling sorry for myself. And I realized that I wasn't the only one in that hospital. There were warriors up and down those halls, just they fight their own fight, they're going through their own personal battle, and I had no monopoly on pain. All right, who was I to say that mine was like the worst ever? I had some kind of excuse for quitting, giving up on life. And so, in fact, one of my fellow EOD team leaders in my company was actually injured 2 weeks before me, and he was just down the hall. So he comes wheeling in on his wheelchair, and the guy's hilarious. He goes, "Give me your hand." I'm like, "Why? You got to feel this." I'm like, "Oh no, this is the military."
Like, I don't want to. I do not want to feel whatever you're going to put in my hand.
Yeah, I don't know what is going on, But he takes my hand and he slaps it up under his chin to feel all this like stubble, this growth. He goes, "Hey, the Marines have this attaché liaison guy. As soon as they get, we're talking EOD techs because they're across the branches." And he goes, the Marine EOD techs, they got this liaison guy who, as soon as they come out of the ICU, he asks them, "How you doing?" If they say fine, he hands them a razor and says, "Get back into regs." We don't have that liaison, dude. So you you got to grow your beard out because it's driving the Marines nuts. So
That's funny. Lighten the mood a little bit, right? I'm sure there's also a lot of dark humor that comes along with that as well. That I think anybody that may not be in the position would understand or think it's mean spirited. But I've talked with quite a few military members who have had horrific injuries, like we're talking about here, and the lightheartedness they have about it, and even some of the darkness they have about it, I'm sure is what keeps you laughing, smiling, and operational.
It that's part of this. And you, of all people, you need a tribe. You need your people. Your positivity and negativity are magnified by the circles you're in. And I had this amazing family, and I had this amazing tribe of service members, wounded. I don't like saying wounded warriors. I like recalibrated carnivores or re-engineered experts. But I had this support system immediately, and that it was impossible for me to fail. So, in fact, I felt ashamed of myself if I didn't try my best, because it became one of those things where it was my ethical and moral imperative to actually be and do my best. And I realized that it was always the imperative as a son, as a brother, as a husband, as a father, as a soldier and an EOD tech, an EOD team leader. All of these roles, all of these hats that I wear, that I am responsible not just for my own life, but I'm responsible for others and to others. So I have to get back in the fight. Just because I'd gotten injured didn't mean I was out of the game.
Did you talked a little bit about, just briefly, casually, something about taking your own life or suicide. Is that a thought that continued to come into your mind? Was there actually a real thought about maybe taking your own life as you sustain these injuries?
Not a single moment, not once, never. No, I was feeling trapped, right? And it's not like you go from one side to the other. You find joy and happiness, and you never go back. It's frustration with this condition or your situation. It pops up all the time, and there are so many times when you kind of waver between the growth mindset and the fixed mindset, and you trip back and forth. So I would get into these sad, depressed moments in my life since then, but there's never been a time where I said I didn't think there was a better solution, a better way out. I just hadn't figured it out yet. But I tell you one thing though is that
how did your body respond? You talked about this shock to the system when you.
The shock to the system and my body? Well,
I think we have a little bit of a delay, so go ahead. I think we just had a little bit of delay or something happening, so go ahead.
Yeah. What I was saying was that for those who have made that awful sacrifice, that awful decision to commit suicide, I think I have said in the past that I've never considered it, but I can understand it. I don't believe that it was the right answer, but I understand.
Yeah, I can understand as well. I've never had that thought myself, but I can understand a person getting to that point. It's tragic. It's horrible. There's a lasting impact generationally in a lot of cases on that act. But I can certainly see how a person would get there. And I'm glad to hear that you didn't. It sounds like you had a good support team around you, which I do want to get into. But I was really curious about something else you said. You were talking about when your body loses one of its senses, and you lost that sense immediately. How did your body react in a positive way? Did you feel like that you had and have since developed a greater sense of touch, for example, or like has your body responded in a positive way, and what has that been like, that process and that journey?
It's funny. I get that question all the time. Like, do you have super hearing now? I'm like, no, I lost that one too. In fact, part of the blast actually had affected my sense of smell, which is linked to your sense of taste. And I'm like, yeah, I'm losing all my senses. My sharpest sense is my sense of humor. But I'm gonna have to, if I need to find directions, I'm gonna have to get down on the ground and lick the concrete. But the truth is, yes, you do. It's funny. For one, when you lose a sense, you pay attention to the other ones a lot more. And I've had other guests, a blind guest who was like a sommelier and a food chemistry guy, because he has this excellent sense of taste, right? And being able to distinguish flavors. And it's not just a simple paying attention, but your brain actually reroutes those signals, right? Those receptors in the brain just kind of focus more on what's still available. So then, yes, you actually are increasing that input from the sensory that you still have.
That's interesting. And then you had said that, if I remember correctly, you lost your hearing from a bout with meningitis. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, this is about 4 years later, and after I got out of the hospital, what they had to do with the cracked skull is they do something called encephalocele. It's they take a piece of your septum and they patch the crack with it, and I guess that hadn't ever been completely patched, because I still had a slow drip, so to speak. And
oh, wow.
4 years later, I started running. I was running marathons. I'd been to Boston. I was whitewater kayaking, mountain climbing. I began speaking. I was just starting to figure this blind thing out, and I came home from a speaking event, and I was feeling super dizzy and fatigued. It wasn't even like a tired thing. It was something else. So I laid down for a nap, and I woke up, I don't know how long after, with the most excruciating pain. Migraine doesn't do it justice. It was like somebody had poured acid into my head and just started stirring. So I called 911. And the operator said, state the nature of your emergency. And I'm like, I have a really bad headache.
They're like, yes, sir, save it.
On this scale of 1 to 10, how bad is the pain? I'm like, I've literally been blown up before, and this is worse. No, okay. Paramedics on the way. So, bacterial meningitis was trying to kill me, and it was doing a better job than the blast, because the doctors thought I was going to die. But they did some heavy doses of antibiotics. But before they could recover me, they could heal me, the bacteria stole what was left of my hearing. And because it was the inner ear, the cochlea were the little hair follicles, the little hair cells that actually receive sound. Or also where your inner ear, your vestibular balance, that inner ear gyro resides. It took that too.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I was in the hospital. I was going through this loss of another sense, a couple senses, and it was knocking me back to the mat. Right.
Sure, of course.
Resizing my ego at the very least. And it was like, God having that sardonic soldier's sense of humor. Like, if you think you're so hot as a blind guy, here, try this.
Yeah.
Do it again.
Oh, that's what did the
And
meningitis or the bacterial the bacteria, the infection itself, or not the infection, but the bacteria enter through that crack in your skull? Is that what happened?
that's what we suspect, because I was kayaking not
Wow.
too not too soon before that, and it's a waterborne bacteria.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's kind of how we suspected.
Yeah. Do you know Eric Weihenmayer? I hope I'm saying his name correctly. Weihenmayer. Does that name
Eric
ring a bell?
Weihenmayer, yeah, he and I are
Yeah.
good buddies. In fact,
Was he an
in
inspiration for you when you went? Like, I don't know the timeline really, but he's been on the podcast. I listened to him speak years and years ago, and he was incredible hiking the tallest peaks on each of the 7 continents. I was so impressed by this guy, and your story reminds me of a lot of his story as well.
Well, when I decided that I wasn't going to feel sorry for myself and I was going to take charge of my life again, and this was back in at the hospital after losing my eyesight. As soon as I could figure out how to use the voiceover, the text to speech, phone and computer, I was on the internet searching blind plus run, blind plus climb, blind plus outside,
Mm,
whatever. And a couple of names kept popping up. One of them being Eric Weihenmayer, and he's the
yeah,
first blind person to climb Mount Everest. And
it's crazy.
I looked him up, and you know what? I went mountain climbing with him. I joined. He took a a, an entirely it was a wounded veteran team up a peak in the Peruvian Andes in 2013
Mm,
called Soldiers of Summits. I was on that thing,
mm.
and I went climbing with him in Colorado. And it's just yeah, it's a great mentor and a great friend.
Were you a climber or a runner or a kayaker before this injury, or is that what really spurred you to take on some of these physical challenges?
I was athletic, but mostly I was a slacker before. In fact, from high school, I considered myself an all-American slacker. I loved playing sports, but I didn't like working out. I mean, I
Mm,
liked the effects, but not the work part. And it kind of plagued me in all areas of my life. Uh, I joined the Navy first, and I spent 8 years in the Navy as a cook. And we
oh,
kind of
okay,
joked that that was the 3 mile a year club, because you have two PT tests, and each run is a mile and a half.
got it.
But it wasn't until joining the Army, switching over to EOD, and I'd have to be fit to wear that bomb suit and do a physically demanding job. So I started getting better, but I was still running for PT, not really working out. It wasn't until after the blast when it was more of a complete terror, fear of being stuck, being boxed in by my condition. Stuck on the couch,
Mm,
maybe crawling into a bottle of booze or pills or something. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to get the heck out of my house. And so one of the easiest things to do, like I said, I was trying to figure out these things like getting outside. And first it was finding Eric and mountain climbing, but I live in the Florida Panhandle, and it is really hard to find a decent mountain to train on around here to
I'm
get
sure.
prepared for Peru. So I started running. I found the local Team Red, White, and Blue chapter. I'll go running with them, and then somehow I got signed up for a marathon, and I wanted to start training with them. And I was talking to another mentor was Ivan Castro. He was an active duty blind Army Ranger, working at the Special Operations Recruiting Branch, and so I get on a call with him, and in the conversation, he talks about how he made it a point every every year to run the Air Force Marathon, the Army 10 miler, and the Marine Corps Marathon. I said, that sounds so cool. That's patriotic as heck. I'm going to do that too. So I registered for all three of those. Somebody told me I should probably do a local one, so I signed up for the Pensacola Marathon. And then some nonprofit out of the blue just said, hey, we'll pay your way if you want to do the San Antonio Marathon. I said, I love San Antonio. So all of a sudden, I was registered for 4 marathons and the Army 10 miler, all within the span of 4 months. And I'd never run anything longer than a 10K in my life.
Yeah.
So I got busy training. And that's kind of how everything since then has kind of happened. I just kind of bite off way more than what I can chew and just kind of try to gnaw the best I can. Figure it out.
Yeah. That's really interesting. When you started to run for the first time, what was that like? The first time after you sustained your injuries? Because I imagine, just walking around in your house was probably relatively scary, let alone, running down the road. Did you have somebody that you were next to? Like logistically, how does that work?
Well, after I got out of Walter Reed and I went to 6 months of blind rehabilitation, blind school at a VA hospital in Augusta. And then the Army asked me while I was going through the med board, where do you want to retire? And of course, I'm in this denial period. I'm like, I don't want to. Ivan Castro's still active duty. I can stay active duty. Obviously, I can't do the EOD thing. They don't even like colorblind guys doing it, the whole red wire, blue wire thing. But
my pesky wires.
I could teach. So I could teach. So send me to the EOD school. I'll become an instructor, and that's why I'm here to this day in the Panhandle near Eglin Air Force Base, where the school is. I started instructing, but they feed you like you're going through buds at Walter Reed. They had it piled up like Belushi's tray in Animal House every meal, and I gained a lot of weight. So I needed to get fit, and I needed to get ready for this mountain climbing thing I just signed up for. So stepping out, I found there was an Air Force officer who volunteered. I was actually staying at the Fisher House, which is kind of, like the Ronald McDonald House for the military, while I still had treatments at the hospital. And he would come by, and we couldn't, how do we do this? I don't know. I'm new to this, the whole blind thing.
Right.
And he had this, a span of 550 cord. It was 5 feet long. He kept tightening it up because all I was doing this accordion thing where if there was I would hold one end, he'd hold the other, and if there was any slack whatsoever, I thought he was turning into me, so I would turn out, and then it was going boing, and if it got too taut, I thought he was turning away, and I would run right into him. So it was the silliest thing until he balled it all the way up till there was only about an inch between us. And then it looked like an Air Force guy and an Army guy in PTs running on base holding hands.
I'm sure you got some interesting looks and comments on that one.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. Anyways, I graduated up to a dog tug of war rope, which was sturdier, and I would hold a knot. My partner would hold a knot, and it's definitely going through some iterations. But I'll tell you what, after getting over the whole embarrassment of the whole bouncing back and forth accordion thing, it was terrifying. I would hear a car coming, and it would basically we're running on the side of the road, so it would drive right by, and I would cringe like I was about to get run over.
I'm sure.
And I have been, I've been running for 12, 13 years now, blind, and I've been smacked by a couple of rearview mirrors. So but I've gotten over that. I trust my guide, just like I would trust my team on the battlefield, right? In fact, most of the time, they're more nervous than I am because they don't want to break the blind guy. They don't want to be that person.
Yeah. Right. Sure. So you run alongside somebody now, or somebody's in front of you. You still do it that way?
Well, for shorter runs, yeah, it was a run side by side. I'll hold one end of a tether, and my guide will hold the other end, and it's only a couple of inches separation. And yeah, we'll just run side by side, and I get all my cues from that tether, and I can just have a conversation with like any other set of pair of runners down the road.
Yeah.
For longer runs, we discovered this a couple of years ago. In 2023, I was invited to run Badwater 135, and
Right.
2 days before the race, the race director says, "You can't run side by side. There's no way. It's all single file the
Because of
whole
the
way."
trail? Okay, yeah.
Well, because it's all on like state highway, you're like country, like county road type thing, and
Got it.
there are about half a dozen police, law enforcement agencies, all making sure that they don't break the rules, and there's no stepping over the white line. So
wow.
that leaves about a foot and a half. So on the fly, we had to come up with a whole new method for guiding, because the only method for going single file with that tether is for my guide to kind of take that tether and hide it behind her back like a kid hiding a lollipop from somebody,
Right.
And
Right.
I would have to extend my arm all the way out, and there's no way I could do that for 135 miles across Death
135
Valley and
miles.
over 3 mountain
Yeah.
ranges. So we'd put my crew and I, we put our heads together. I had some trekking poles, and they took the poles and taped the tips of the poles to the pacer's belt. And
Okay.
I held the handles, and the trekking poles kept me bracketed in, and I stayed directly in line with my guide. And we ran just like that, and because I couldn't really hear, I can't hear very well at all. I mean, I am totally deaf except for this cochlear implant. Without this little guy, I'm pulling the full Helen Keller. But instead of talking over the shoulder, which is also awkward, my guide had a little whistle, and we had a code for run, walk, stop, and that was it. And we did
Wow.
that. And here's the most amazing part, is that over a decade of running side by side with that tether, and me keeping kind of a stiff arm with that 90-degree elbow, trying to hold the tether and pay attention to the cues, I've kind of developed knots and arthritis in my shoulder, and it's become really painful. And I was dreading having to do that over this ultra marathon. And the pain of that would be worse than any pain in my legs or my feet or whatever. And what happened was these trekking poles that were basically more or less attached to my guide's hips moved like horizontal pistons. And I got to swing my arms again for the first time in over a decade. And
Yeah.
it was like cheating for me. So I started off even better than I thought I would.
Wow. That's interesting you guys came up with that. And it is a pretty simple system. It makes so much sense. You probably almost wonder why you'd never done that before, I imagine. Because you said that was relatively, the last couple of years you discovered that system?
Yeah, just did that. I don't know if anybody else does that, but it was completely new. It was separately invented by me and my team.
Right.
I literally, it seems like something simple that others would do, but there are so many different methods that other blind runners have figured out, and I don't know how they do it. And there's, of course, there's gradients, there's levels to being blind. There's what I call blind, and then there's that legal blindness or visual impairment. So I think the Boston Athletic Association that runs the Boston Marathon, they have 5 different categories for blind runner or something like that.
Oh, they do. Okay.
Anyways,
Yeah.
some people that have enough sight, they have their guides just wear a brightly colored shirt and they chase the color. So who knows? Anyways, we'd separately figured this out on our own, and thank goodness it worked amazingly well.
Yeah. I'm interested, I think part of the draw and joy of running is to be able to be in a new place, to see new surroundings, to take in the environment, and that's an impairment for you. So, you don't have the luxury of being able to see around you or see new places or experience that way. So how do you experience those things when you're running, and what other joy do you find that somebody who maybe does have the capability of seeing all around them might overlook?
That is definitely a downside. I've heard that Death Valley National Park is a beautiful place, and I love seeing other runners and that grimace or smile of collective misery. Is there, but I had an incredible team, and we had 42 hours to chat about this or that, and there were definitely times where, the middle of the night where my guides, we had quiet and peace that you don't find where there are screens, right? So
Yeah.
there's this ghost town called Darwin, and it's definitely a lull in the race because it's pretty flat there, and we were going right through the middle of the night, and it's super quiet. And my guide and I actually figured, kind of, Kathy, she and I kind of ran out of stuff to say, so we started just singing. And then we couldn't figure out what songs we actually knew all the lyrics to. And in the middle, like this was July 5th, and we're singing Christmas songs because they're the only thing we both knew all the lyrics to. But
That's
you
that's pretty cool to
experience
be
it
able to
in other
connect that
ways.
way. Yeah. Yeah. What I'm really curious about the trust that's built, and that's one question that I really thought about when I was talking with Eric as well, is just the immense amount of trust that you would have to have in your guide. Kathy, I think you said is her name. And I'm sure the same is true if you're climbing a mountain peak. I'm very curious about the trust that you guys build. How do you develop that trust, number one? And are there things that you're paying attention to, especially if there's a new person in your group that might inhibit or hinder some of the trust building process?
Well, first, I've got one end of the tether, they got the other. If I go down, you're coming with me, buddy. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I don't know if it's just my nature or if it's, maybe it's the military thing where you've got to trust those others in uniform to do their role, even though you may have never met them before. They're the supporting, units, elements. You have no idea, but you see the uniform, and they're professionals. And I took that kind of trust to the rest of my life and said, "Listen, I am uncertain of what might happen ahead, but I'm going to expect the absolute best from you, and I hope you do the same for me. Expect that even though you're afraid of me being blind and deaf and having lost my balance, that I can do things like climb a mountain or run a marathon, and that I can do it well. And I'm going to expect that you, despite maybe having never guided a blind person before, are just going to stay alert and learn and do your absolute best. And if it turns out that either of us falter, I'm just going to check that off to a learning experience. Let's just hope it's not a tragic
Right, not
learning
catastrophic.
experience.
Right, right. I didn't ever actually consider that. You said lost your balance. Is that from the hearing loss, or is that from the TBI, or what is that a product
That's
of?
from the hearing loss. Yeah. My vestibular balance,
hold on
it
one
was
second.
taken in the bacteria.
I didn't realize that my phone was hooked up to my earbuds, so I was getting a phone call, so I could only hear the ringing, not you. Anyways, we were talking about the loss of balance. You were going to explain that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, when the bacteria took my hearing, it also took my sense of balance, the vestibular balance. It's all right there in that inner ear. And so I came home in a wheelchair that second time. And I was sitting at my like the breakfast bar, my counter in the kitchen. I had to hold on to the countertop because I would fall right off the stool. And I had to hold on to the towel rack by the bathroom if I didn't want to fall off the toilet. So yeah, and it even the sense of that the feeling when you lean back in a chair and you're just on that teetering between falling forward and falling backward, but you don't know which way you're going.
Right.
That's how it felt in little waves, no matter what I was doing. All of a sudden, I would feel like I was falling, but didn't know which way I was going. So that would even invade my dreams. I would dream like I was falling, and I'd jump right out of bed. So yeah, when I came home, and I wanted to get back to, what I'd learned for the last 4 years of being blind. Both like all that stuff, all the accessibility tools were all text to speech. It was all audio based, and
Right.
of course with the deafness, I was thinking, darn, I should have learned Braille, but I was too lazy. But
You're slacking. Another product of the slackerness, right?
But the technology did make me a little bit of a slacker. It's kind of an arcade, code that you've got to learn. You got to practice like a different language. And I'm like, I can just scan something with my phone and it'll read it to me.
Right.
So, and it's getting better every single day, which makes the drive for actually learning Braille more diminished than ever. But
I'm sure.
it took it was almost a year before the cochlear implant, before I could actually have a conversation with another human.
Whoa.
So through that year, I was trapped in my body, and my whole world kind of ended at my fingertips. And I had a treadmill. I had the beautiful garage gym with squat racks and all sorts of stuff. And I couldn't get on my treadmill because it just felt like someone was trying to steal that thing out from under me. I was all over the place. So it was a huge, it was a huge kick in the butt. Another reality check that I had to figure out. So I would take the trekking poles that I'd previously used in the mountains, and I started using them like this daddy long leg crab walk thing, like they were half crutches, half antennae in front of me, just to get out to the mailbox and back, and then I would be exhausted, but then I would do it again, and then I would go a little bit further, just down to the next driveway and back, and that's how I learned how to walk again. And then I'd get on the treadmill and just hit that quick start where it was like half a mile an hour, and I would just hold on for dear life and just keep walking in pure silence. So I was trying to again. It was one of those times where I was trying to think of like something to occupy my mind. Do I know any lyrics to any song? And
Yeah.
I I would start into cadences. That was, marching, running cadences, and then that would eventually turn into "Do What Diddy," from Stripes. Anyways, eventually I could speak. I could spin the speed up a little more, until I was jogging again, and eventually I started walking. I learned how to get my balance back in other ways. And I'm far better than, but it's still, my balance is not where I could get back into the mountains, but I can run, I can walk.
Yeah. So you figured out ways to adapt your body has in order to address the balance issues. So those issues are still there, but you've got workarounds that have helped you overcome that, it sounds like.
Yeah, we have 3 different ways that we get our balance. One is that vestibular, the inner ear gyro. One is through visually seeing ourselves in relation to the world. That's why people get sick on roller coasters and like jets when they do the loops and stuff, is because it screws with their sense of balance. And then through physical contact. So I'm like down 2 out of 3, but I got really good at the physical contact thing, and I think some of my vestibular balance returned, some of it.
Yeah.
But that's one of the toughest things when you're doing an endurance race, because the longer you run, the more fatigued you get, and the less your muscles want to respond. So the longer I run, the more wobbly I would get.
Wow. Have you fallen on one of these runs? Like, have you ever taken a spill?
Oh yeah, I'm awesome. I'm so good at the combat roll. I'm a pro at falling.
You perfected it at this point.
Yeah, I'll trip on something, and I just start tucking in that shoulder. I'm like, here it comes. And I'll do a little roll, pop back up, and my guy would be like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, nah, let's keep going. Here, grab this thing. Let's go.
Oh man, I can't. That is wild to me. Okay, so what's going to be next for you? Because you've got you're climbing mountains. That one seems like maybe not as feasible based on the balance and that sort of thing. You're running ultra endurance events. Like, what's next? Do you have other things on the mind? You're kayaking, whitewater kayaking. What else are you going to do?
Well, the really leaning into the running, since the kayaking and the mountain require a little bit more balance. But also, I didn't tell you this, but I don't know if it was you or Larry Hagner I discovered you guys like 15 years ago, or not 15, but 10 years ago, right about that time.
Ago,
yeah, 10 years ago, right about the time I lost my hearing. I was listening, just before then, I was listening to a lot of podcasts while I was training on the treadmill. And I wanted to, learn more about being a better man, a better dad, and I discovered you grabbed maybe the coolest name on podcast, Order Man. But, I was listening to you guys, and then a year later, when I finally got my hearing back with this implant, I was listening to you guys again, and it inspired me to start my own show not too long ago. When I finally figured out how to get the technology to work and hired somebody to figure it out. But since then, I'm running more. I'm signed up I'm registered for the Route 66 ultramarathon, 140 miles in Arizona.
Wow.
And Marine Corps Marathon, I'll be going back for my 6th time in DC. And I started a chocolate company. I started investing in real estate, and we've got rentals in a couple different states, and all this stuff. I like doing this stuff because I want to achieve. I want to show my 3 sons that you can't use these setbacks as excuses. So I got to keep showing them examples, showing them of how I can't use this ever as an excuse. And so the most recent thing is, a blind guy, blind deaf guy with a podcast called Point of Impact. It's my way of, similar in nature to you and Larry's, is showing people how they can get out of a rut, overcome challenge. But not just that, it's becoming your best self, so you can give your best and make that impact. And one of the most important things, one of the most important drivers of all of this is something, I don't even know. There was probably a meme I read on Facebook, but it said, someday the story of your struggle might be the blueprint for someone else's survival. And that hit me right in the chest. And I've got this crazy story. And I can't believe that this all-American slacker is right in the middle of it. But if I was given such an important story, I'd better figure out how to deliver it to those who need it. And that's what I'm doing.
It's interesting the way you just said that. You said, I was given this story. Do you feel, in a way, I don't want to put words in your mouth by any means, so I'm curious what you think about, is there any sort of gratitude for that incident and the injuries you sustained or not? Like, how do you feel about it now? What is it now, 14, almost 15 years later?
Yes. It has given me, don't get me wrong, if I could see again, if I could see my mother's face, my boys' faces, I would give anything. But it gave me my life. It gave me an appreciation for people around me. It gave me humility and gratitude. And this gift that is my life, it gave me the ability to contribute. Because before then, I was a bit depressed. I was a bit sad because I was thinking a lot about me. I was thinking too much about me. Now, I've been given this story, and I need to give it away. I need to give it back. I need to, become that piece of life that is abundance, and I need to, make sure that the flow doesn't get interfered with, or it doesn't that I'm participating, and that is the most fulfilling sense that I can think of, is to contribute.
Well, you're doing it, man. And I got to say, I'm inspired, and I'm glad that we were able to connect, because I've been fascinated with what you have going on and how you've been able to do some incredible things that most people, myself included, haven't done. And I have, no excuse for that whatsoever. So it's pretty inspiring to see somebody have this situation and take it and use it as fuel for their life, and also to improve other people's lives as well. So I'm really grateful that you came on and shared some of your story. I know it's going to help other people. So thanks for joining me today, man.
Well, thank you very much, Ryan. Like I said, long-time listener, first-time guest, and I really do appreciate you inviting me on. Thank you.
Of course. I'm glad we made it happen, man.